The nurse thought I was confused. She thought I was just another old woman who'd lost her mind somewhere between who she used to be and who the years had made her. But I wasn't confused, not even a little bit. I'd been waiting 32 years for exactly this moment. And all I needed was for one person in that hospital to hear one name. My name is Eleanor Mae Whitfield. I'm 74 years old, and I've lived in San Francisco for most of my life. Born in a little house over in the Sunset District, raised by a mother who ironed other people's clothes for a living, and a father who drove a city bus for 30 years without missing a single shift. Folks around here called us ordinary, and I suppose we were. But ordinary people carry extraordinary secrets sometimes, and I had been carrying mine for so long. I could feel the weight of it in my bones. I don't remember exactly how long I'd been sitting at that bus station. An hour, maybe two. It was a cold Tuesday morning in November, the kind of damp San Francisco cold that gets into your joints and doesn't leave. I wasn't lost. People assumed I was lost, but I knew exactly where I was. I was sitting right there on Market Street, 3 blocks from the Civic Center, waiting for the number 9 bus. What I didn't know was that my body had quietly decided it was done cooperating with my plans. I heard someone say I'd collapsed. I don't recall falling. One moment I was sitting there, and the next I was looking up at a gray November sky, with 2 young paramedics kneeling over me, telling me to stay still. One of them leaned close and asked if I was okay, and I said the only thing that mattered to me in that moment. I said the name. I said it clearly, the way you say something you've rehearsed 10,000 times. The paramedic looked at his partner. They both looked at me the same way people look at someone they've already decided is confused. They brought me to San Francisco General. I'd driven past that hospital 100 times over the years, always slowing down just a little, always feeling something in my chest tighten up like a fist. Because I knew what had happened inside those walls 32 years ago. I knew what had been buried there, quiet and still, like something sealed under concrete that nobody wanted to dig up again. The nurse who was assigned to me was named Maya. I could tell right away she was a good person. There's a particular kind of patience in certain people. You can see it in how they move, how they don't rush even when they're busy. Maya had that. She pulled up a chair next to my bed, which surprised me. Most folks just stand at the foot of the bed and look at their clipboard, but she sat down. She looked me right in the eye, and she said, "Can you tell me your name, sweetheart?" I told her my full name, Eleanor Mae Whitfield. She wrote it down. Then she asked if I had any family to call, any emergency contacts, and I said no, which was the truth. My husband Gerald passed 11 years ago. My daughter Patricia lives up in Portland, and we haven't spoken in 4 years. That's a whole other story. I had nobody to call. Maya nodded slowly, no judgment in her face. Then she asked me the standard questions. Did I know what year it was? Did I know where I was? And I answered every single one correctly. But then I said the name again. I said it quietly, but clearly. I said, "Before anything else, I need someone in this hospital to know that name. It's important. It will change everything." Maya looked at me the way young people look at the elderly when they're trying to be respectful and skeptical at the same time. She wrote something on her clipboard. I could guess what she was writing. possible confusion, possible dementia, repeating a name. I'd been a retired school teacher for 15 years, and I recognized the look of someone who had already formed a conclusion before gathering all the evidence. Later that afternoon, I heard Maya out in the hallway talking to another nurse. I have good ears for an old woman. Gerald always said I could hear a whisper through 3 walls. Maya was saying she wasn't sure whether to list me as a cognitive concern or just a fall risk. Her colleague said something like, "They always repeat names, honey. It's usually a grandchild they're missing." I pulled my blanket up a little higher and closed my eyes. Missing? Lord, I wasn't missing anyone. I had found exactly who I was looking for. Let me take you back, because none of what happened in that hospital room in November makes any sense without you understanding what happened there 32 years earlier. It was 1992. I was 42 years old. Gerald and I had been married for 18 years. We weren't rich. Gerald managed the parts department at an auto shop on Folsom Street, and I taught 4th grade over at Longfellow Elementary in the Mission. We were comfortable enough. We had our little house. We had Patricia. And we had our reputation, which in our neighborhood meant something. Gerald had been admitted that October. A heart issue, they said, wasn't serious, but serious enough to keep him for observation. I was there every single day, every morning before school and every evening after. On the 3rd day of his stay, I arrived early, before visiting hours, which a nurse had kindly allowed because she knew me by then. And that's when I saw something I wasn't supposed to see. In the room next to Gerald's, the door was open just a crack. And through that crack, I saw Dr. James Calloway doing something that made my stomach drop to the floor. I won't tell you every detail, not yet, because back then, I didn't fully understand what I was seeing. I only knew it was wrong. I only knew that the man in that room with Dr. Calloway was not a patient. He was dressed in regular clothes, and what passed between them, what I saw change hands, it wasn't medical. I stood in that hallway for probably 15 seconds before I backed away, and when I turned around, Dr. Calloway came out of that room and looked directly at me. He knew I had seen something. I could tell by the way his entire face changed. He asked me to sit with him for a moment. "Just a chat," he said. He had a way about him, smooth, charming, the kind of man who made you feel like being in his confidence was a privilege. He told me that what I had witnessed was a private matter, a family arrangement. He used the word sensitive situation. He told me that if I cared about my husband's recovery, and he paused right there, just long enough for me to understand what he wasn't saying out loud, then perhaps this was something best forgotten. I sat there with that cup of coffee going cold in my hands, and I made the worst decision of my life. I nodded. I said okay. I said I hadn't seen anything. I've regretted that nod every single day for 32 years, because 3 weeks later, I found out the truth of what I had witnessed. A young nurse, a 26-year-old woman named Rosa Delgado, had filed a complaint against Dr. Calloway. She claimed he had falsified a patient's medical records, a patient who had died, and she claimed there was a witness who could place a specific person in that room on the night in question. That witness was supposed to be me. But by the time the investigation started, I had already been silent for 3 weeks, and Dr. Calloway's attorney had already made sure of that. Rosa Delgado lost her job. They called her account inconsistent, unsupported. The investigation was closed within 2 months. Dr. James Calloway went right on working. Got promoted, actually, a few years later. Became chief of cardiology. I saw his picture in the San Francisco Chronicle in 1998 at some hospital gala, smiling in a tuxedo. And I sat at my kitchen table on Judah Street with that newspaper in my hands, and I wept, because Rosa Delgado had lost everything trying to do the right thing. And I, the one person who could have confirmed her story, had said nothing. I had protected my husband's care. I had protected my comfortable little life. And I had let an innocent young woman be destroyed for it. After Gerald passed 11 years ago, I started looking for Rosa Delgado. I had more time then, and the guilt had never left. It had just gotten quieter over the years, the way debts do when you stop looking at the bill. I searched online, called a few people, even went to the San Francisco Public Library and dug through old records. What I found stopped my heart. Rosa Delgado had left nursing after losing her job. She'd struggled for years. And then I found something else, a name. The name of the person who had been in that hospital room with Dr. Calloway on the night in question. The person Rosa had been trying to protect. The name that Dr. Calloway's attorney had worked so hard to keep out of the record. That name was the reason I ended up on that bus station bench on a cold November morning. Because that person was still there, still inside that hospital. And I was going to make sure someone finally heard that name spoken out loud. That evening, Maya came back in with my dinner, chicken soup, which I didn't have much appetite for. She was moving toward the door when I spoke up. I said, "Maya, I need you to sit down for just a minute. I'm not confused. I'm not losing my mind. I'm going to tell you something. And I need you to listen the way people used to listen before everyone decided they already knew the answer." As she sat down, I don't know what made her do it. Maybe it was something in my voice. Maybe she was just tired and grateful for a reason to stop moving. But she sat, and she looked at me, and for the first time since I'd arrived at that hospital, I felt like a full person again instead of a problem to be managed. I looked her right in the eye and I said the name, clearly, completely. And Maya's face didn't change. She didn't recognize it. She was too young. She wrote it down on the corner of her notepad and said she'd look into it. I told her not to look it up on a computer. I told her to ask someone who had been at this hospital for more than 20 years. Someone who would remember. Bernadette had been at San Francisco General for 31 years. Maya told me this later. She was the kind of nurse who had seen everything and forgotten nothing. When Maya showed her the name on that notepad, she said Bernadette stopped walking. Just stopped and stood very still for a moment, the way people do when something reaches all the way back into a place they thought was sealed shut. Bernadette asked Maya where she had heard that name. Maya told her. The patient in room 14, the elderly woman who had been brought in from the bus station. Bernadette looked down the hall toward my room, and according to Maya, her face had gone the color of old paper. She said very quietly, "That's not a name you hear around here anymore. Someone made sure of that." And then she walked away without another word. Maya stood at that nurse's station and felt for the first time that little pull in the stomach, that feeling that tells you something is much bigger than it first appeared. Maya came in the next morning before her shift even started. I knew she would. There's a particular kind of person who cannot leave a door unopened once they know something is behind it. She sat down and she said, "Mrs. Whitfield, I need to understand what that name means to you." And I said, "Pull that chair a little closer, honey, because I'm going to tell you a story that this hospital has been hoping nobody would ever tell." I told her everything about Gerald's hospitalization in 1992, about the door that was open a crack, about Dr. Calloway and his smooth voice and the coffee going cold in my hands, about Rosa Delgado and what she lost, about the 32 years I had carried the guilt of my silence like a stone in my chest. Maya didn't interrupt once. She just sat with her hands folded in her lap, and I could see her processing it piece by. What I hadn't told Maya yet was the final piece. The name I kept repeating wasn't Dr. Calloway's name. Calloway had retired years ago. I had checked. The name I kept repeating was the name of the person he had been protecting, the person who had been in that room, the person who, according to the records Rosa had tried to file, had ordered the falsification to cover up a surgical error that had cost a patient his life. And when Maya did what I told her to do, when she asked around quietly, carefully, she found out that person was still in that hospital, not as a patient, not as a visitor, as a senior administrator, had been for over 20 years, protected, promoted, comfortable, just like Dr. Calloway had been until he retired with a full pension and a farewell dinner. When the name finally reached him, and it did, because in a hospital things travel, I was told that he walked down to my room himself. He stood in the doorway and looked at me, and I looked back at him, and 32 years collapsed like it was nothing. He had aged, of course. They all do. But I recognized him. I would have recognized him anywhere, because I had spent 32 years looking at that face in my memory, asking it why, and never getting an answer. He came in and closed the door. He sat down, not in the chair where Maya sat, but on the far side of the room, like he was keeping a safe distance between himself and what I represented. He looked at me for a long moment, and then he said very quietly, "How did you find out?" Not, "I don't know what you're talking about." Not, "You have the wrong person." He said, "How did you find out?" And you know, after 32 years of silence, hearing that question felt like a key turning in a lock, because it was the first time anyone connected to what happened had ever acknowledged that something had happened at all. I told him that Rosa Delgado had tried to tell the truth in 1992, and that I had failed her by staying silent. I told him that I had spent 11 years looking for the full story after my husband passed. I told him that I had found an attorney, a young woman named Carmen Reyes over in the Tenderloin who took cases like mine on contingency, and that Carmen already had everything I knew, in writing, signed and notarized, along with the records I had managed to locate through 2 decades of carefully placed requests. And I told him that I had not wandered into that hospital confused. I had come to that hospital deliberately, because I knew that once I spoke that name out loud inside these walls, it would surface exactly the way it did. People who have secrets always react to the thing they've been hiding. They can't help it. He was quiet for a long time, long enough that I could hear the hospital sounds outside the room. a cart rolling by, someone paging a doctor over the intercom, the ordinary business of life carrying on right outside that door. And then he said something I didn't expect. He said, "I've thought about that night every year, not because I feared being caught, because a man lost his life." I looked at him and I said, "So did Rosa Delgado. Not her body, but everything else." I don't know exactly what happened after that day. I'm an old retired schoolteacher from the Sunset District, not a lawyer, but Carmen Reyes knows, and the hospital's legal department now knows. And according to what Maya told me in the days that followed, she stopped by every shift to check on me, that kind young woman. There were quiet conversations happening in rooms I would never be allowed inside. The kind of conversations institutions have when they're calculating the cost of finally telling the truth versus the cost of continuing to bury it. I can't tell you how it ends, not yet, but I can tell you how it started. It started with Rosa. I found her. With Carmen's help, I found Rosa Delgado. She lives in Sacramento now. She's 68 years old. She runs a small in-home elder care service, which nearly broke my heart when I heard it, because even after everything that was taken from her, she never stopped caring for people. When I called her, she didn't say much at first. There was just silence on the line. And then she said, "I always thought someone had seen. I always believed someone had to have seen." I told her I had. I told her I was sorry it took me this long. And she was quiet again for a moment. And then she said very softly, "Eleanor, thank you for coming back. I've been thinking a lot lying in this hospital bed about what it means to be brave. Because I used to believe that I wasn't a brave person. I stayed silent when silence was safer. I let a young woman be destroyed because I was afraid of what honesty would cost me. For 32 years I told myself I had no choice, that I was protecting my husband, my family, my life. But the truth I finally had to face when I was sitting alone in my house on Judah Street after Gerald was gone, is that I had a choice. I always had a choice. I just didn't make the right one. I'm 74 years old. I have a daughter in Portland who doesn't return my calls. I have bad knees and a heart that the doctors are now watching carefully. I have a small house that feels too big some mornings, and a cup of tea that goes cold because I forget I made it. I am, by most measures, just another old woman who the world has begun to move past. But I am also the woman who finally, after 32 years, walked back into that hospital and said a name out loud. And I want you to know, whoever you're watching this, it is never too late. It is never too late to do the thing you should have done before. The truth doesn't expire. The people it could protect are still out there, still living with the weight of what was done to them. And your voice, even an old voice, even a tired voice, even a voice that shakes a little, still carries. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. At my age, you start to understand something that takes most people a lifetime to learn. Courage isn't the absence of fear. Courage is deciding that something matters more than your fear. Rosa Delgado mattered more than my fear. She always did. I just needed 32 years and a cold bench at a bus station on Market Street to finally understand that. If my story touched your heart today, if it reminded you of someone in your own life who deserved better, who deserved someone to stand up and speak, please like this video and share it with someone who still believes that the truth is always worth telling, no matter how long it takes. And if you feel moved to leave a word in the comments below, I read every single one. And if you'd like to hear another story about family, sacrifice, and the moments that change everything, click the video on your screen right now. The next story is already waiting for you, and I promise you, you won't want to look away.